1 year after the Battle of Kepler 442 the rebuilt New Sol colony looked completely different from the small farming community it had been before. The town square where Taemin had died was now a beautiful memorial garden with flowers and trees from dozens of human worlds. In the center stood a statue of the 12-year-old boy holding his computer pad and smiling. So Young and Jinsu visited their son's memorial every day. They would sit on the bench nearby and tell him about what was happening in the colony and how much they missed him. Other families had joined them on New Sol, and the population had grown to over 100,000 people. The colony was now one of the most important human settlements in the galaxy. The memorial inscription was carved in Korean, English, and 17 different alien languages. It said that Taemin had loved learning about other worlds and dreamed of becoming a diplomat who could help different species understand each other. His death had achieved that goal in a way no one could have expected. Representatives from dozens of human colonies attended the first anniversary ceremony. There were also diplomatic delegations from alien civilizations that had never bothered to acknowledge humanity's existence before the battle. The Andorian Federation sent their finest ambassador. The Crystalline Collective dispatched a full diplomatic team. Even more surprising was the presence of Vortakian representatives. The new Vortakian government had overthrown their old military leaders and established a democratic system based on human ideals. They came to New Sol to formally apologize for their empire's crimes and to ask for forgiveness from Taemin's family. Admiral Yoonhee had been promoted to Supreme Commander of all human military forces after the battle. She traveled from Earth to deliver the dedication speech at the memorial ceremony. Her words were broadcast across the galaxy through the quantum communication network so every intelligent species could hear humanity's message. The Admiral spoke about Taemin's love of learning and his curiosity about alien cultures. She explained that humans wanted to be friends with other species and explore the galaxy together in peace. But she also made it clear that humanity would never tolerate the targeting of innocent children by any alien government or military force. The speech was translated into hundreds of alien languages and broadcast on every major communication network in known space. Alien leaders who had never paid attention to human politics suddenly found themselves studying every word. They realized that humanity was not just another minor spacefaring species but a major galactic power. The Battle of Kepler 442b had demonstrated military capabilities that shocked the entire galaxy. No alien civilization had imagined that humans possessed quantum weapons technology or the ability to coordinate such massive fleet movements. The 8-minute response time became legendary among military historians. More importantly, the battle showed that humans were willing to use their full military strength to protect innocent life. Other species fought wars for territory or resources or political advantage, but humans had deployed 800 warships to avenge the death of a single child. This made them unpredictable and dangerous to any species that relied on intimidation. The Vortakian Empire formally dissolved 6 months after the battle. The member worlds declared independence and established new governments based on democratic principles. Many of them applied to join the growing alliance of species that had formed around humanity's leadership in galactic affairs. Captain Dong Hyen, who had commanded the first human ship to arrive at New Sol, was promoted to admiral and given command of the new Taemin battle group. This elite fleet was stationed permanently at the colony to serve as a symbol of humanity's commitment to protecting innocent life wherever it was threatened. The quantum communication network that had enabled humanity's rapid response was no longer a secret. Human engineers began sharing the technology with allied species who agreed to use it only for peaceful purposes and neutral defense. The galaxy was becoming more connected and safer for all civilized beings. Taemin's computer pad was preserved in the new Galactic Museum of Peace that was built on New Sol Colony. Visitors from across the galaxy came to see the simple device that had led to such dramatic changes in interstellar relations. The old videos of the boy's grandfather were still stored in its memory along with his school projects. The Human Defense Corps established the The massive arena on planet Kethros was bigger than 10 football stadiums put together. Millions of aliens from across the galaxy watched through holographic screens as the greatest show in Vorthan space was about to begin. The crowd made loud noises and threw things at the energy barrier that surrounded the execution platform in the center. Kim Taeho knelt on the cold metal floor with his hands tied behind his back. The quantum restraints around his wrists could hold a spaceship in place, but he did not struggle against them. His black ninja outfit was torn and had bloodstains from 3 days of questioning by Vorthan soldiers. Even though he knew he was going to die, he kept his face calm and looked around at all the alien beings who wanted to watch him suffer. The 28-year-old human had been caught while doing a secret mission on the outer edge of Vorthan territory. He was part of Earth's Shadow Division, which meant he was trained to gather information and stay hidden from enemies. His mission was supposed to be simple: get in quietly, take pictures of enemy military bases, and get out without anyone knowing. He was there. But something had gone wrong on the third day. Commander Vexstar was 9 feet tall with green and gold scales that looked like armor. His red eyes glowed as he walked onto the platform. The reptilian alien wore a military uniform covered in metals and carried a plasma sword at his side. He was the most feared military leader in Vorthan space and had conquered 12 different planets in the last 5 years. The commander raised his arms and the crowd became quiet. His voice was deep and scary as it echoed through the arena and was broadcast to every corner of the Vorthan Empire. Billions of aliens across hundreds of worlds stopped what they were doing to watch this moment. "Citizens of our great empire," Vexstar announced, "today we will execute this human spy who tried to steal our military secrets. He thought he could sneak into our bases and learn about our weapons. Let this be a lesson to every species in the galaxy. No one can stand against Vorthan power." The crowd cheered and made ugly faces at Taeho. Some threw rotten food and sharp objects that bounced off the energy shield. They called him names in different alien languages, but he did not understand most of the words. He could tell from their voices that they hated him and wanted him to be afraid. Taeho closed his eyes and thought about his wife Park So-young back on Earth. She was probably at home taking care of their baby daughter, who was only 3 months old. His little girl would never remember her father, but maybe someday. His wife would tell her that Daddy died trying to protect people from bad aliens who wanted to hurt innocent beings. The execution method was chosen to be slow and painful on purpose. A plasma beam would start weak and slowly get stronger. This would make Taeho suffer for a long time before he died. The Vorthans thought this would scare other humans and make them too afraid to fight back against the Empire. 3 Vorthan soldiers in heavy armor stood near the plasma cannon. The weapon was as big as a car and had energy coils that glowed bright blue. Steam came out of cooling vents along its sides as the machine charged up for the execution. Red targeting lasers pointed at Taeho's chest and moved up and down as the soldiers adjusted their aim. "Any last words, human commander?" Vexstar asked with an evil smile that showed his sharp teeth. Taeho opened his eyes and looked directly at the commander without fear. "I forgive you," he said in a clear voice that carried across the silent arena. "You don't understand what you're doing, but my people will." The aliens in the crowd laughed at what they thought was weakness. They did not know that forgiveness was one of the strongest things a human could offer. They thought mercy meant fear, but humans knew it meant strength that aliens could never understand. What nobody in the arena knew was that Taeho had not been captured by accident. For 3 days, while the Vorthans thought they were torturing him for information, he had actually been using his training to study everything around him. His neural implant was recording the locations of military bases, the number of ships in their fleets, and the faces of important commanders. Every human who worked in dangerous places had a special device put in their brain. If they died, the implant would send all the information they had gathered back to Earth using quantum signals that moved faster than light. The Vorthans had never discovered these implants because their technology was not advanced enough to detect them. During his 3 days of capture, Taeho had seen enough to plan the complete destruction of the Vorthan military. He knew where their ships were parked, which planets had the biggest weapons, and who were the most important leaders. All of this information was stored in his implant, waiting to be sent home the moment his heart stopped beating. Commander Vexstar stepped back and nodded to the soldiers operating the plasma cannon. The weapon made a high-pitched whining sound as energy built up inside its core. The targeting lasers became brighter and focused on Tejo's chest, where they would cause the most pain before reaching his heart. Tejo began to say a prayer his grandmother had taught him when he was a little boy in Korea. He spoke the words quietly in his native language while thinking about all the good memories from his life. His first day at military school, the day he married so young, holding his daughter for the first time at the hospital. The crowd became excited as the plasma cannon reached full power. Aliens from different worlds cheered and made betting on how long the human would survive. Some thought he would scream and beg for mercy like other prisoners had done. They did not understand that humans were different from every other species. They had conquered. The beam fired with a bright flash of white light. Plasma energy hit Tejo in the chest and began burning through his body. He did not scream or cry out in pain. Instead, he kept his eyes open and continued praying until the very end. His last thought was about his baby daughter and hoping she would grow up in a galaxy where aliens like the Vorthans could never hurt innocent people again. Kim Tejo died with honor and dignity. His body fell forward onto the metal platform as the crowd cheered loudly. Commander Vexstar raised his arms in victory, believing he had just shown the galaxy that humans were weak and easy to defeat. At the exact moment Tejo's heart stopped, his neural implant activated. The device sent a quantum signal through folded space that would reach Earth instantly. The signal carried detailed information about Vorthan military strength, base locations, fleet positions, and command structure. Everything needed for Earth's military to plan the perfect attack. The execution was over, but the real show was about to begin. The Vorthans had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. They thought killing one human would scare the others, but they had actually just declared war on the most dangerous species in the universe. 8 minutes later, every planet they owned would be burning. 8 light years away from the arena where Kim Tejo had just died, Earth's most powerful military base was having a normal day. Admiral Choi Min-ho sat in his office reviewing reports about ship repairs and training schedules. He was 45 years old and had been protecting Earth from alien threats for 20 years. His office walls were covered with pictures of battles he had won and soldiers he had commanded. The Terra Command Center was built deep underground beneath the mountains of Korea. It was the most secure place on Earth and could survive a direct hit from planet-destroying weapons. 5,000 of humanity's best military officers worked there, every day planning how to keep Earth safe from hostile aliens. Suddenly, every screen in the command center flashed bright red. Alarm sounds filled the air as computers detected an incoming quantum signal. This was not a normal message, but a special emergency transmission that could only come from one source. A human operative had just died in enemy territory, and his neural implant was sending final intelligence back to Earth. Admiral Choi jumped up from his desk and ran toward the main control room. His assistant, Captain Lee Dae-yoon, was already there looking at data streams flowing across dozens of monitors. Her face was pale as she read the information that was coming through the quantum link. "Admiral, we have a priority 1 death signal from Agent Kim Tejo," she reported in a shaky voice. "He was executed by Vorthan forces approximately 30 seconds ago. His final intelligence package is downloading now." The Admiral felt his heart sink as he read Tejo's name on the screen. He had personally approved that mission and knew the young man had a wife and baby daughter at home. But there was no time to grieve now. The intelligence Tejo had gathered during his capture was more valuable than gold, and would allow Earth to strike back at the aliens who had murdered him. "What do we have?" Admiral Choi asked as he studied the incoming data. "Captain." Lee worked quickly at her computer terminal, bringing up maps and charts that showed Vorthan military positions across dozens of star systems. "Sir, he managed to catalog their entire fleet structure. Ship positions, defensive networks, command hierarchies, even the personal schedules of top military leaders. This is the most complete intelligence package we have ever received about any alien empire, the information kept flowing in as. Tejo's neural implant transmitted everything he had observed during his 3 days of captivity. The Vorthans had thought they were torturing him, but he had actually been conducting the most successful spy mission in human history. Every base he was taken to, every ship he saw, every conversation he overheard was now being sent back to Earth. Admiral Choi called his senior staff into the command center. These were the men and women who had spent years preparing for exactly this moment. They had trained together, planned together, and were ready to work together to make the aliens pay for killing one of their own. General Park Ji-woo arrived first. She was in charge of all special operations and had personally trained many of the Shadow Division operatives, including Tejo. Her eyes were red with anger as she read the execution report, but her voice was steady and professional. Admiral, I have 40,000 Special Forces soldiers positioned throughout Vorthan space, she said. They have been living under cover as civilians for months waiting for orders. Every major Vorthan world has at least 50 of our people ready to strike. Colonel Kim Min-jae came next. He commanded the stealth corps, which operated invisible ships that could attack without being detected. His forces had been hiding in dark space near Vorthan territory for weeks, just waiting for a reason to reveal themselves. Sir, my stealth fleets are in position around 37 Vorthon systems, he reported. We can hit their orbital defenses and military installations simultaneously. Estimated time to eliminate all space-based threats is 4 minutes. Commander Yang Haijin led the Deep Strike Squadron, which specialized in destroying enemy shipyards and manufacturing facilities. Her ships carried the most powerful weapons humanity had ever built and could turn entire industrial complexes into scrap metal. Admiral, we have identified 17 major Vorthan shipyards and 43 weapons manufacturing plants, she said while pointing at targets on the tactical display. My squadron can eliminate all of them before they know we are there. The Admiral looked at the tactical situation and felt proud of how well his people had prepared. For years they had been positioning human forces throughout the galaxy just in case something like this happened. Every civilian colony had hidden weapons, every trade ship carried military equipment, and every diplomatic mission included trained soldiers. Activate Phoenix Protocol, Admiral Choi ordered. All human civilians in Vorthan space are to evacuate immediately. All military assets are authorized to engage with maximum force. This is not a drill. Phoenix Protocol was humanity's ultimate contingency plan. It had been developed after Earth's first contact with hostile aliens and was designed to coordinate millions of people across thousands of light years in a single devastating attack. Every human in the galaxy knew about Phoenix Protocol but hoped they would never hear those words. Within seconds, the quantum communication network came alive with messages. Every human colony, every military base, every ship in space received the same orders at exactly the same time. The aliens had killed Kim Tae-ho thinking it would scare humanity into submission. Instead, they had just activated the most powerful military force in galactic history. On mining stations near Vorthan space, human workers put down their tools and walked to hidden weapon lockers. Civilian families began loading onto evacuation ships that had been disguised as cargo vessels. Restaurant owners closed their businesses and activated intelligence networks they had been building for years. Research scientists revealed that their laboratories were actually military communication centers. Farmers showed that their fields contained hidden missile silos. Even children's schools had secret bunkers filled with supplies for the families of military personnel. The beauty of humanity's plan was that aliens had never suspected anything. They saw humans as weak because they seemed to live peaceful lives on quiet colonies. But every human settlement was actually a fortress, and every human civilian was a trained soldier waiting for orders. Admiral Choi watched as tactical displays showed human forces moving into position across dozens of star systems. In less than 5 minutes, over 2 million military personnel had received their orders and were preparing to attack. The coordination was perfect because they had practiced this scenario hundreds of times. Time to target acquisition, he asked. His tactical officer. Major Yunesio Jin checked her computer screens before answering. Sir, all units report ready for simultaneous assault. Vorthan forces show no signs of increased alertness. They have no idea what is coming, the Admiral nodded, and opened a communication channel to every human commander in the galaxy. His voice was calm but carried the weight of humanity's anger as he spoke the words that would begin the 8-minute war. All units, this is Terra Command. Execute Phoenix Protocol. Make them remember what happens when you kill one of our family. Begin assault in 60 seconds. The countdown began and humanity prepared to show the galaxy what happened when you made them angry. Commander Vexstar was still enjoying the cheers from the crowd when the first reports reached his command ship orbiting planet Kethros. His communication officer looked confused as he tried to make sense of the incoming messages from across Vorthan. Space. Sir, we are receiving scattered reports of attacks on our patrol vessels, the young alien reported. The transmissions are unclear, but it appears that mining colonies are firing on our ships. Vexstar laughed at what he thought was an impossible report. Mining colonies do not have weapons capable of threatening our warships. Check your equipment for malfunctions, but within the next 2 minutes the reports became impossible to ignore. Patrol fleets were vanishing without sending distress signals. Orbital defense platforms around major worlds were going dark one by one. Communication networks were failing across dozens of star systems. Sir, we have lost contact with the 7th Fleet at Morgok, his tactical officer announced with growing panic. Their last transmission mentioned explosions from unknown sources before the signal cut out. The first human strike had been perfectly coordinated. At exactly the same moment, across hundreds of light years, human forces revealed themselves and began the systematic destruction of Vorthan military power. Ships that had been invisible suddenly appeared and opened fire. Colonies that seemed harmless activated hidden weapons. Civilians who had lived peacefully for years became deadly soldiers. Captain Nam-Ur-Jin piloted his stealth fighter through the debris field that had once been the Vorthan defense network around planet Morgok. His squadron of 12 ships had eliminated 43 enemy vessels in less than 3 minutes using plasma torpedoes that struck from impossible angles. Phoenix leader to all units, he reported calmly to his fellow pilots. Morgok defense grid is completely destroyed. Number. Enemy vessels remain operational. Civilian evacuation ships are clear to begin planetary assault operations. The human stealth fighters were invisible to alien sensors and could attack from any direction without warning. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy vessels 10 times their size. The Vorthan military had never faced an enemy that could strike without being seen and disappear before they could respond, while space battles raged. Overhead human sleeper agents on planet surfaces activated across the galaxy. These were people who had been living normal civilian lives in Vorthan cities for months or years while secretly gathering intelligence and preparing for this moment on planet. Thracos restaurant owner Kim Ji-hai served her last customer of the day before locking the doors of her establishment. She walked to the basement where she had been maintaining a complete intelligence operations center disguised as food storage. Her cooking supplies were actually military-grade explosives, and her recipe database contained detailed plans of every government building in the capital city. Ji-hai had been operating this cover identity for 2 years, while building a network of 24 other human agents throughout the planet. They worked as shop owners, teachers, mechanics, and even government clerks. The Vorthans trusted them completely and had no idea they were all highly trained military operatives. Network 7 to all agents, she transmitted on encrypted channels. Phoenix Protocol is active. Begin simultaneous strikes on primary targets. Remember, we want to eliminate command structure and communication systems before orbital bombardment begins within minutes of receiving the signal. Ji-hai's network struck at government buildings, military bases, and communication centers across the planet. The Vorthan leadership never knew what hit them as explosions destroyed their ability to coordinate defenses or call for help from other worlds. The same pattern repeated on dozens of planets. As human sleeper cells activated, years of patient Preparation paid off as aliens who had seemed like harmless civilians revealed their true training. Restaurant owners became demolition experts. Shopkeepers turned into communication specialists. Even children's teachers showed their skills as military tacticians. Back in space, the destruction of Vorthan forces continued with mechanical precision. Commander Yang Haijin led her Deep Strike Squadron in the systematic elimination of shipyards and manufacturing facilities throughout enemy territory. Each target represented decades of construction and billions of credits in investment. "Target confirmed destroyed," she reported after watching the massive Mordic shipyards vaporize under concentrated fire from her squadron. Moving to next objective. All deep strike units report ready for continued operations. Her ships move through Vorthan space like death itself, turning industrial complexes into scrap metal with an efficiency that amazed even her own crews. The aliens had built their empire over centuries, but humanity was tearing it down in minutes. The speed of the human victory was unlike anything ever seen in galactic warfare. Most interstellar conflicts lasted years as species gradually wore each other down through prolonged campaigns. But humans had ended Vorthan military resistance in the time it took to eat a quick meal. Admiral Choi monitored the tactical displays from Earth as dozens of alien star systems fell in rapid succession. Every human unit was reporting success ahead of schedule. The coordination was perfect because they had been planning this response for years, while the aliens thought they were just peaceful colonists. "Status report," he requested from Major Yoon, SCO Jin, who was tracking the progress of all human forces. "Sir, Phase 1 objectives achieved ahead of schedule," she replied while checking her computer displays. "Vorthan defense networks down in all primary systems. Phase 2 bombardment fleets are in position. Estimated time until total Vorthan military collapse is 2 minutes and 30 seconds. The aliens had wanted to make an example of humanity by publicly executing Kim Tae-ho. Instead, they had triggered the most devastating military response in galactic history. Every human in the galaxy had watched that broadcast, and every human was now responding with precisely coordinated fury on planet Vorthak Prime, the capital. World of the Empire. Colonel Kim Min-jae led his Special Forces team through the ruins of Planetary Defense Headquarters. The building had been damaged by orbital strikes but not completely destroyed, so they could capture important leaders alive. "Please," begged Admiral Krexter as human soldiers secured him with quantum restraints. "We can negotiate. The execution was a mistake. We did not know humans would respond like this." Colonel Kim looked at the alien commander with cold eyes that showed no mercy. "You broadcast the torture and murder of our operative to billions of beings across the galaxy. You wanted to demonstrate your power and our weakness. Consider this our demonstration." Through the broken windows of the command center, the Vorthan admiral could see his capital city burning. Human ships filled the sky, turning centuries of alien architecture into rubble with surgical precision. But what terrified him most was how calm and disciplined the human forces remained. This was not random destruction born of anger, but calculated warfare designed to send a very specific message. The message was simple and would be remembered by every species in the galaxy. Humans looked peaceful and seemed to avoid conflict, but if you harmed their people, they would respond with overwhelming force that could destroy civilizations in minutes. They were not the weak species that other aliens believed them to be. As the last Vorthan military installation fell silent, Admiral Choi prepared to address the entire galaxy. His message would be transmitted on every frequency and translated into every known language, so that no species could claim they had not been warned. The 8-minute war was almost over, but its lessons would last forever. 3 days after what historians would later call the 8-minute war, the galaxy was still trying to understand what they had witnessed. The Vorthan Empire, which had seemed invincible just hours before, had been completely eliminated by a species that most aliens considered weak and harmless. Ambassador Lee Soo-jin stood before the Galactic Council in the Great Assembly Hall on Neutral Station. Harmony 1. She was 50 years old and had spent her entire career working for peaceful solutions to conflicts between different species. Today she would represent humanity in their first official address to the Interstellar community since becoming a major galactic power. The chamber was packed with representatives from every known civilization. Delegates who had never paid attention to human affairs now hung on every word as Lee prepared to explain how her species had achieved such a devastating victory so quickly. Honorable delegates, she began in a calm voice that carried easily through the massive hall. Humanity did not seek this conflict. We have always preferred peaceful cooperation and mutual understanding with all species. However, we will not tolerate the public execution of our people for the entertainment of others. The alien delegates listened in complete silence. Many of them had watched the broadcast of Teho's execution and cheered along with the Vorthan crowds. Now they wondered if humanity considered them enemies as well for enjoying the spectacle. The Vorthan Empire believed that killing one human operative would demonstrate their superiority and discourage resistance from our species, Ambassador Lee continued. Instead, they triggered a military response that had been prepared for years. Every human settlement, every trade mission, every diplomatic outpost in the galaxy was ready to act as one coordinated force. What impressed the council members most was not just the scale of destruction but the precision and restraint humanity had shown despite their overwhelming advantage. Human forces had avoided civilian casualties wherever possible, captured enemy leaders, rather than executing them, and targeted only military and government installations. Dr. Park Min-Woo, humanity's chief xenobiologist, was invited to explain the strategy behind their victory in a private session with representatives from the major species. His presentation would help them understand how humans had managed to hide such massive military strength while appearing to be peaceful colonists. You see, we studied how the Vorthans conquered other worlds, he explained while showing tactical displays of previous alien conflicts. They relied on fear and brutality to maintain control over species they considered inferior. We decided to demonstrate that such tactics would never work against humanity, while also showing that we are not monsters like they were. The key to human success had been patience and careful planning. While other species rushed to build obvious military installations that could be easily targeted and destroyed, humans had learned to hide their strength in plain sight. Every civilian colony was a potential fortress, every trade route was a supply line, and every peaceful researcher was a trained soldier. Captain Park, So-young, widow of the executed operative Kim Teho, was invited to address the council in the final session of the emergency meeting. Her presence served as a powerful reminder of what had started this conflict, and her words would influence galactic diplomacy for generations to come. She stood at the speaker's podium holding her 3-month-old daughter, while delegates from hundreds of species watched in respectful silence. Many of them had children of their own and could understand the pain of losing a spouse to violence. My husband died believing that his sacrifice would protect our people and send a message to those who would threaten innocent beings throughout the galaxy, she said in a voice that remained steady despite her grief. The Vorthans wanted to make him an example of human weakness. Instead, he became proof of human resolve. Her baby daughter made soft sounds as she spoke, and several alien delegates were visibly moved by the scene. They began to understand that humans were not motivated by conquest or glory, but by the desire to protect their families and ensure that cruelty would never go unanswered. We remember our dead, we protect our living, and we ensure that those who celebrate violence against innocent people will face the consequences of their choices. Park continued, "This is not a threat but a promise. Humanity wants peace, but we will never allow our people to become entertainment for others." The rescued Vorthan prisoners were being held in comfortable facilities on Earth where they received proper food, medical care, and legal representation. Many had expected to be tortured or executed in revenge for their empire's crimes, but humanity had no interest in such barbarism. Colonel Kim Min-jae, who had captured many of the high-ranking officials, explained the reasoning behind this policy to curious council observers. "We could have killed them all, and no one would have blamed us," he said, "but that would make us no better than they were. Instead, we will put them on trial and let the galaxy see the difference between justice and revenge the trials would be." conducted according to galactic law with full legal protections for the defendants. Evidence of Vorthan war crimes would be presented publicly so that other species could understand why humanity had responded with such force. The message was clear: humans would fight when necessary, but they would not become the monsters they defeated. As news of humanity's victory spread throughout the galaxy, different species reacted in various ways. Some were frightened by the demonstration of human military power and began reviewing their own policies toward Earth colonies. Others were impressed by humanity's restraint and precision, seeing them as potential allies against other aggressive empires. The Krenth Federation, which had been fighting a losing war against Vorthan expansion for 3 years, sent a diplomatic mission to Earth within days of the conflict's end. Their ambassador expressed gratitude for humanity's intervention and requested assistance in rebuilding worlds that had been devastated by alien occupation. Your actions have freed millions of beings from Vorthan oppression, Ambassador Veltar told Admiral Troy during their first meeting. We offer our friendship and alliance to any species capable of such decisive action in defense of the innocent. Similar offers came from dozens of other civilizations that had suffered under Vorthan aggression. Humanity found itself suddenly surrounded by potential allies who respected their military capability and admired their ethical restraint. But perhaps the most important outcome of the 8-Minute War was the establishment of new principles for galactic civilization. The era when stronger species could abuse weaker ones with impunity was ending. Humanity had shown that such behavior would bring swift and devastating consequences from those with the power to enforce justice. The execution of Kim Tae-ho had indeed sent a message across the galaxy, but not the one the Vorthans intended. Instead of intimidating humanity into submission, it had announced Earth's emergence as a major power that would defend the innocent and punish those who celebrated cruelty. Every species in known space now understood the new reality. Humans looked peaceful and seemed to prefer quiet lives on distant colonies, but if you harmed their people, they would respond with overwhelming force that could destroy entire civil. Planet Kethros, where Kim Tae-ho had been executed just minutes earlier, became the first world to experience humanity's full wrath. The massive arena where thousands of aliens had cheered for his death was now the epicenter of orbital bombardment that turned the entire facility into molten glass and twisted metal. Admiral Choi had given special orders regarding this particular planet. Make sure they understand the price of celebrating the murder of our people, he had told his bombardment commanders. Every government building, every military installation, and every communication hub on that world is to be eliminated with extreme prejudice. The human battle fleet above Kethros carried enough firepower to crack the planet's crust, but they used surgical precision instead of mindless destruction. Each target was carefully selected and destroyed with the minimum force necessary. This was not random violence, but a calculated demonstration of human military capability. Captain Lee Hyun-woo commanded the orbital bombardment from his flagship positioned directly above the former execution arena. His weapons officers had programmed the targeting computers to eliminate every building within 50 kilometers of where Tae-ho had died. The aliens who had watched the execution were now running in terror as their city burned around them. Target acquired, his weapons officer reported. Vorthan Military Command Center is locked and ready for elimination. Fire, Captain Lee ordered without emotion. Show them what happens when they make entertainment from our people's suffering. The plasma beam struck the command center with pinpoint accuracy. The building that had coordinated the execution broadcast to billions of beings across the galaxy vanished in a flash of white light. Within seconds, every other government facility on the planet met the same fate, but humanity's response went far beyond simple destruction of military targets. This was a message being written in fire across the galaxy, one that every intelligent species would remember for centuries to come. The humans did not just attack soldiers and weapons, but systematically dismantled the entire foundation of Vorthan. Civilization. General Park Ji-woo coordinated ground assault operations from her command ship as human marines landed on worlds that had already been softened by orbital bombardment. These were not random attacks but carefully planned operations, designed to capture key leaders alive while ensuring that Vorthan military power could never recover. "Remember, we want prisoners, not corpses," she broadcast to her landing forces. Dead aliens cannot serve as examples to other species who might consider similar actions against humanity in the future. The human Marines who landed on Vorthan worlds were like nothing the aliens had ever encountered. They moved with mechanical precision and showed no fear even when facing enemies that were twice their size. Each soldier carried enough firepower to level a building but used only the force necessary to complete their objectives. On the industrial world of X-Prime Major Kim Sung-ho led his battalion through the smoking ruins of what had been the planet's main weapons manufacturing complex. His orders were to secure the facility and capture the engineers who had designed many of the weapons used against human colonies in previous conflicts. "Sir, we have located the primary research laboratory," his sergeant reported through the communication system. 43 alien personnel have been secured for questioning. No casualties among our forces. The speed and efficiency of human operations amazed even their own commanders. Worlds that should have taken days to conquer were falling in minutes. The aliens had no effective response to coordinated attacks that struck simultaneously from space, air, and ground. Commander Yang Haijin continued leading her deep strike squadron in the systematic elimination of Vorthan shipyards throughout their former territory. Each facility represented the dreams and ambitions of an empire that had thought itself invincible. Now they were becoming monuments to the folly of underestimating humanity. "Kronos shipyard eliminated," she reported after reducing another massive construction facility to floating debris. Estimated construction time to replace this facility would be 15 years, assuming they had the resources and expertise. They have neither. Her weapons officers worked with calm professionalism as they targeted critical support structures that would cause maximum damage with minimum ammunition expenditure. The humans were not wasteful in their destruction but chose each target for maximum strategic impact. The psychological effect of these attacks was even more devastating than the physical damage. Vorthan civilians who had cheered for Tejo's execution were now fleeing their homes as human forces demonstrated the true meaning of military superiority. Many aliens had never imagined that the peaceful humans could be capable of such overwhelming violence. On Vorthak Prime, the capital world of the Empire, Colonel Kim Min-jae continued his mission to capture the highest-ranking alien officials. His special forces team moved through the burning government district like ghosts, appearing suddenly to eliminate resistance and disappearing before enemy reinforcements could arrive. "Target secured," he reported as his team captured Finance Minister Kextel, who had helped plan the public execution as a way to raise morale among Vorthan citizens. "High-value prisoner is ready for extraction. No human casualties," the minister begged for mercy as human soldiers carried him toward their transport ship. "Please spare my family," he pleaded. They had nothing to do with the execution. "They are innocent civilians." Colonel Kim looked at the alien official with eyes that showed no hatred but also no sympathy. "Your people should have thought about innocent families before they decided to torture and murder one of ours on live television for entertainment." What terrified the Vorthan leadership most was not the scale of destruction but the discipline and restraint that human forces showed even in their anger. Despite their overwhelming victory, human soldiers avoided civilian casualties wherever possible. They targeted military and government installations while leaving hospitals, schools, and housing areas mostly undamaged. This selective destruction was actually more frightening than mindless violence would have been. It proved that humans could control their fury and direct it with surgical precision. The aliens realized they were not facing an enemy driven by emotion, but a military force that had planned this response down to the smallest detail. Dr. Park Min-woo, chief xenobiologist for Earth's diplomatic corps, was already preparing detailed reports about Vorthan society and culture for the post-war period. His teams had been studying alien prisoners to understand how their civilization could be rebuilt in a way that would prevent future aggression. "We need to understand what drove them to such cruelty," he explained to his research staff. The public execution was not an isolated incident but part of a cultural pattern that celebrates violence against weaker species. This mindset must be changed if they are to coexist peacefully with other civilizations, as human forces completed their objectives across dozens of star systems. The scope of their victory became clear to observers throughout the galaxy. The Vorthan Empire, which had controlled over 200 worlds and commanded fleets that had conquered dozens of species, had been completely eliminated in less time than it took most beings to finish their evening meal. The message was unmistakable and would reshape galactic politics for generations to come. Humanity had announced their arrival as a major power, not through conquest or expansion, but through a single devastating demonstration of their capability and unity. Every species in known space now understood that humans were not the weak, peaceful race they appeared to be. The 8-minute war was ending, but the flames of burning Vorthan worlds would serve as a permanent reminder of what happened when you made humanity angry.